How's it going?
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well on this Friday evening. I am very, very low energy this evening. You'll have to bear with me. I know it's Friday night. We're not going to have too many people joining us anyway, so it's not a big deal. We're just going to have fun with it. We're going to roll with it. It's a lovely summer evening in August. I don't know if you guys know this, but it is the most holy of days. It is actually Barack Obama's birthday today. So we are going to try to honor his memory and his legacy by talking about him not at all other than this. So can't wait for his legacy to disappear like dust in the wind. But unfortunately, it feels like we're going to keep fighting the racial division that he sowed while he was in office for the rest of our existence as a country. But we'll see what happens. I hope you all are enjoying summer. I hope you are all cooking out, having barbecues, drinking lots of cold drinks. I found this unfortunate article from the Daily Mail. America's 25 sweetest drinks ranked. They contain as much sugar as 18 cookies, so is the juice really worth the squeeze? One of the things I noticed when I was working on losing weight was that it was never, so sugar itself is a really bad investment. It's a short-term investment. If you need a quick hit of energy, sugar's the way to go. But if you're trying to stay full for a really long time, like you inevitably are, when you're trying to lose weight, you're going to want to go with protein and fat, which is why cheese and meat and peanut butter, avocados, high protein yogurts are my best friends while I was losing weight for sure. Definitely none of these drinks, not even as a treat. I drank Diet Coke and that was it. I refuse to give up Diet Coke 100%. I'm very much with Elon Musk on that one. You can't give everything up. You should have something that you still enjoy, because if you're trying to make a lifestyle change, you have to recognize that you're going to try to make it stick, right? So let's read about the horrors of sugar and drinks, because there are a lot. And because they come with absolutely zero fiber, they don't fill you up at all. So you'll drink them. They won't make you feel full. It'll be like you didn't drink any calories at all. And then you'll continue to eat the way you were going to eat anyway. And it's just an excellent way to gain a bunch of weight in the worst possible way, and maybe some type 2 diabetes along the way. Soft drinks have been under scrutiny, as many contain the artificial sweetener aspartame, which the World Health Organization has declared a possible carcinogen. Right. However, DailyMail.com found 25 sodas, teas, and energy drinks that contain the highest amounts of the sweet stuff, which, despite being natural, has still been linked to issues like diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. That's right. Sugar, as we know it, is unbelievably processed. It's white for a reason. The other thing I noticed when I was trying to lose weight, when I was successfully losing weight, actively losing weight, was that healthy food often isn't white, okay? It's not white. It's not yellow. It's not gravy, potatoes, bread, rice, pasta, stuff like that. White usually means very, very processed. I can't think of a single fruit or vegetable besides actual potatoes, like potatoes with skin on, that are white. Very, very rare in nature. Many of these drinks have significantly more sugar than the American Heart Association's daily recommended limit, 24 grams for women and 36 grams for men. Taking into account sugar from other foods you eat throughout the day, this puts soda lovers well over safe limits. The worst offender is a classic, Mountain Dew. 65 grams of sugar in a 16.9 ounce bottle. The brightly colored liquid, my goodness, has more sugar than 6 donuts from Krispy Kreme or 18 Chips Ahoy cookies. That's right. One of the other things that was, at least until recently, in Mountain Dew was something that was banned. Excuse me, I'm going to eat some Tums right now. Something that was banned in Europe for causing actual cancer. I think it was sodium benzoate, but I don't remember exactly. You guys can fact check me on that. Texas Ranger says don't eat anything white. Yeah, for sure. Shocking news that nobody predicted. Trudeau might be gay. The only turbo refined thing I like to consume is high-end sake. That is a little bit different. That's a treat. So treats a little bit different, and Americans need to change the way they think about treats, because in the past, something like a soda would have very much been considered a treat, like once a week or once a month. And now it's not. It's like a daily thing, and this is just part of the reason we're gaining weight at ridiculous rates. Let's see. Classic Krispy Kreme glazed donuts have 10 grams of sugar each, while each Chips Ahoy cookies has about 3.5 grams. The brand's Baja Blast flavor, ask Andy about that, a fan favorite that's gained widespread popularity after being sold at Taco Bell, has 59 grams in a 16-ounce serving. Holy cow. I don't even want to know how much sugar Tums have in them, but I also don't care because I need something to help with heartburn. And this is what it's going to be because it's what I have in here. That's as much as the iconic Oreo McFlurry from McDonald's, which has 60 grams. Holy cow. Look at this, though. Mountain Dew has 65 grams. Crush Grape has 60. Surge. When's the last time you guys had Surge? 56. Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda, 55. My goodness. Canada Dry, even 47 grams. One of the other things that really helped me while I was working on losing weight was making food myself. Like right now, I have a jar, like a big glass jar full of water and tea bags in it in the refrigerator. And that's what I'm going to drink over the course of tonight and probably tomorrow. I use the, what's it called? The Zingers tea. I have black cherry and mixed berry in there today. And tomorrow it will be raspberry and then blueberry. I got it all lined up. But I don't want this soda stuff. And the other thing, too, I think that people don't realize about sparkling drinks, including sparkling water, is that consumption of too much carbonated stuff, period, whether it has this much sugar in it or not, can lead to something called, what's it called? It's the precursor to esophageal cancer. Let's look it up real fast, see if we can figure it out. Something esophagus to linked, I spelled cancer wrong. Linked to carbonated beverages. Cancer with an S, that's right. Carbonated soft drinks have been hypothesized to increase the risk of gastric reflux and the risk of esophageal adenocarcinoma, but case control studies have reported inverse or null associations with laryngeal or esophageal cancers. Interesting. So I wanted to look up. There is a condition, a type of esophageal issue that is caused by carbonations, they were saying, but it looks like it might be debunked. Okay, that's cool. I'm happy to see that. Now, the consumption of sweet beverages and cancer risk is probably a direct line. But as far as carbonation goes, just like carbonated water, sparkling water, Andy really likes those sparkling things that are like La Croix or whatever, however we want to pronounce it, is apparently not a huge deal. Oh, Barrett's esophagus, that's what it's called. I can't believe I forgot. I'm torn. If Rupert Murdoch drinks 2 Cokes a day, it makes me feel like it's somehow healthy somehow. Maybe. Well, Elon Musk drinks Diet Coke, and then Donald Trump drinks regular Coke. Donald Trump has historically said he's never seen a thin person drinking Diet Coke. When I weighed 140 pounds, I drank Diet Coke all the time. So if he'd ever seen me, he would have seen a skinny person because I am 5'11". 140 is actually technically really pretty thin for me. He would have seen a relatively thin / healthy proportioned person drinking Diet Coke. But because he didn't, he did say that. I am so with Elon Musk saying I'm just never giving up Diet Coke. I don't really care what it causes. That's just my one thing. That's kind of my hill to die on. That's my vice. It is what it is. It's not a big deal as long as you're not drinking too much. Serenko is in the chat. Hello, everyone. Psycho Clown says, to be fair, Baja Blast is delicious. I don't even remember what it tastes like, but I will say I used to love Sprite Remix. It was clear. It had a red lid. It was amazing. And it was just like such a wonderful time in my life when I could go to the store called Big R, tractor supply store out near where we lived in Colorado, and buy a Sprite Remix. And it just made my day. And sometimes I would put gummy bears in it because I was like 12 or 13 and I just had a great time drinking it. And this kind of links up with my strong, good memories I have of eating blueberry bagels with my grandmother before we would take walks, and drinking Dr. Pepper with my aunt before we would ride horses, and of course drinking coffee with my dad. These were things that were very memory linked for me, and I don't think they're related to my issues with food because I was 180 by the time I was like 13 years old, which is obviously way more than a young lady should weigh. But it was just, I think eating was more of like a bored thing. I wouldn't eat because I was hungry. I would eat because I was bored, didn't have anything else to do. So by keeping myself properly busy and properly oriented toward the right things, I was able to tweak how I thought of eating. That only changed when I got on this crazy medicine right before I got pregnant and ended up gaining a bunch of weight. But I digress. If you guys want to keep your weight under control, make sure that you're not drinking Baja Blast every single day. Texas Ranger says, eat Chips Ahoy and donuts. Thank you for that sage advice. Hi, Andy and Lids. How about cauliflower? Just teasing. Cauliflower is fantastic. They say that if you replace rice with cauliflower, you can you can remove 70% of the joy from your life. So if you're into that, you can definitely dive into that. But on the topic of food, Thomas Massey has some very important stuff to tell us. He was just on a podcast, a morning show with a guy called Tom Rowan, I think his name is. And he was talking about this act. So he's been pushing this farming act since April of this year, and it's very, very important. And the host actually asked Representative Massey point blank whether they were putting the COVID vaccine into meat. And he said, you know what? That's a great question. You need to know who your meat supplier is so you can make sure that they're never going to put mRNA vaccines into your food, period. Because that's just something you should know. That's something that every responsible American should be aware of if they're getting into that for sure. Thomas Massey says that the U.S. government and the American oligarchs and corporations want to control your speech, your right to self-defense, your healthcare, but the crown jewel for them is to control what you eat. That's why the PRIME Act and other food freedom initiatives are my top priorities. That is a great thing to be your top priority. And he did put out a press release about this, which I pulled up, and this is from the end of April earlier this year, and it says, Representatives Massey and Pingree introduced bipartisan PRIME Act to empower local livestock farmers and meet consumer demand. From Washington, D.C., today Representative Thomas Massey and Representative Shelley Pingree, I don't know her, reintroduced the PRIME, P-R-I-M-E, Processing Revival and Intrastate Meat Exemption Act to make it easier for small farms and ranches to serve consumers. The PRIME Act would give individual states freedom to permit intrastate distribution of custom slaughtered meat like beef, pork, or lamb to consumers, restaurants, hotels, boarding houses, and grocery stores. Consumers want to know where their food comes from, what it contains, and how it's processed, yet federal inspection requirements make it difficult to purchase food from trusted local farmers. Said Representative Massey, it's time to open our markets to give producers the freedom to succeed and consumers the freedom to choose. Absolutely, 100%. I love that. I don't know about you guys, but I personally am very familiar with the concept of buying like a quarter cow or a whole cow from a local farmer that you then store in your freezer, obviously your deep freeze, because you own part of a herd, right? So it's called part herd ownership, I think is what it's called. Something like that. It's pretty great. But as Thomas was pointing out on this podcast that he shared, he tweeted this out earlier, I think yesterday, and they were talking about how the feds are stepping in and trying to make even that incredibly difficult. Stewart says sugar is bad for the body, better off with Manuka honey. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry, I did a double. I don't know if you meant to do a double super chat, but I appreciate it either way. Appreciate that for sure. Yeah. I don't know if Manuka honey is any better. I do know that in my research, I discovered that sugar is sugar no matter what form it's in. That means honey is sugar, fructose is sugar, fruit is full of sugar. The difference with fruit is that fruit comes alongside of a bunch of different fiber and many different vitamins. And one of the things I discovered when I first got pregnant was that pretty much any vitamin you can get from a vegetable, this was the best news I'd heard all day, any vitamin you can get from a vegetable, you can also get from a fruit. And I was so happy to hear that. I've eaten a bunch of peaches, I've eaten a bunch of strawberries, cherries, all sorts of berries since I've been pregnant. And it's been a delight for me because such a focus of my diet over the course of like probably the last 10 years has been focusing on eating less sugar overall. And that included fruit for a really long time. But fruit is amazing and delightful. I love to put it in my water. I put frozen fruit in my water, and Andy likes to make fun of me. But it gives a unique flavor to my water. It's almost like tea, and then it melts down a little bit, and you can use it for other stuff. And it's really awesome way to use it. Stuart says pears. Pears are fantastic because they're so light and neutral flavored. I do think Manuka honey has powerful healing properties. When I worked at the hospital, we did some wound treatment, right? I worked alongside of a nurse who did nothing but wound care, and that was one of my favorite gigs because we were treating some serious, really interesting, really kind of severe, intense, kind of grisly wounds on people, including really bad bed sores, tunneling wounds, stuff like that. Crazy. I won't get into too many of the details because it really is rather unsettling. But we would use Manuka honey, and we would use silver and some of this other stuff that people tend to discount out of hand. One of the other things she mentioned while we were working together was that they actually did have really good results using maggots to clean up dead skin on the outsides of wounds, which really grossed me out. But the more I thought about it, I was like, well, maggots aren't going to eat healthy skin. They're only going to eat the debris on the outside that's already decomposed. It's sloughing off, right? Again, a little bit too gross, a little too graphic for most people. I thought it was really interesting. I loved all the natural features using silver. Once I got a really bad sunburn and had to use silver on it to help it heal faster, because silver has such wonderful healing properties and such good, powerful antibiotic properties. But I digress on that count. I just don't know much about Manuka honey other than it's rather expensive. Excuse me. More and more, consumers want to know where their food is coming from, especially after the pandemic exposed breakdowns in our supply chains, says Representative Shelley Pingree, Democrat from Maine. A farmer in Maine shouldn't have to drive hours to get a USDA-inspected processing facility when other safe options are available. The Bipartisan Prime Act will make it easier for local farms to compete with big meat companies and make locally raised livestock processing more widely available. This bill will address the needs of communities in a way that supports them by allowing America's family farms to do what they do best, feed their neighbors. 100%. I'm so happy to hear this, and you will not believe what I found when I was looking this up. So if you go to news, look at this. Cattlemen reiterate opposition to Prime Act. Prime Act draws criticism from meat groups. That's right. This is from National Hog Farmer. We have the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Let's look them up because I think that they're a union. Beef Association. Can't type. Advocacy. NCBA is the voice of U.S. cattlemen and women. Join now. No, thank you. They do not want what's best for small farmers. It's not surprising at all. Works to advance the economic, political, and social interests of the U.S. cattle business and be an advocate for the cattle industry's policy positions and economic interests. Apparently not. At least certainly not when it comes to small farm owners. So this would be big beef, I guess, big cattle, because they really don't want this bill to pass. They are opposing it for sure, but this would make it easier for small farmers to sell their goods and not have to go through the FDA, which is a really positive thing. So that's really neat. You guys should definitely check out what they're putting into your meat and make sure you're not getting stuff you don't want in there. They were talking about these super fancy, oh my gosh, like plant vaccines. See if I can pull that up, because that was really interesting. I'd never heard about that before. Plant-derived vaccines. No, this is what I'm looking for. Plant-based efficacy. Recombinant plant-based. Okay. Vaccines quickly get off the deep end, and I'm not sufficiently medically familiar to figure them out. Really interesting stuff. We're talking about vaccinating plant. Interesting. Sorry, I have Tums on my tooth now. Anyway. Andy says he's done with work for the week. I'm very excited to hear that. Speaking of big development, Florida has, quote, effectively banned one of the most popular AP courses according to the College Board. What is going on here? Can you believe this? This is crazy. I would never believe this for a minute. Florida school districts will have to stop teaching AP psychology. Psychology, huh? One of its most popular classes, as some subject matter in the course has been effectively banned, the College Board said Thursday. According to the statement, the Florida Department of Education said the course could only be taught if districts exclude lessons on sexual orientation and gender identity. So, anti-woke, anti-critical race theory means that they won't be able to teach AP psychology at all, huh? Who is that really a reflection on? Is that a reflection on Florida, or is that a reflection on AP psychology? Because I've been arguing for a while now, and I've been kind of going back and forth for a while with Andy about this too. I've been arguing that therapy is really not good. I don't think it's good for people in general. I think that psychology itself has been co-opted by this wokeness, by this mind virus, and I don't really see a good way to get it back without a complete revamp. But Andy thinks that it has a net good. People are pushing for it. They think it's a positive thing. It can help you solve some of your problems. But I just look at all of the woke people, all of these crazy, crazy people, and they're just like, oh, I'm in therapy, and it's like a badge of honor for them. And I'm just like, what good is it doing these people? Is it actually making them better? In fact, I want to show you this. I think they shared this one. There's a person who was talking about how they're Unitarian Universalist. Yeah, so people like this.
actually use gendered honorifics like sir or ma'am, ask very kindly what a good gender-neutral replacement for that would be. And the most common answer from people like me who don't like gendered words applied to us is learn to drop the honorific, because most of us don't like to be put in that situation in a quick interaction with a stranger. And the asker will protest that they don't feel like they're respecting people without the honorific. Friends, I see you really trying, and I understand that you've been conditioned really hard to use this kind of language. But I have to add,
This person has 100%. I would literally bet $100 that this person spends a lot of time in therapy. And they will tell you that they think it's helping them. They will tell you that they think they're making progress through it. And you'll listen to them and you're like, what are you doing in therapy? This is not positive. That's crazy to me. These people are the most unhinged, most mentally unstable members of our society. I have never heard anything or anyone crazier, to the point where I just feel bad for them. But they spend a hell of a lot of time in therapy. And I'm like, what are you doing over there? Maybe something's wrong with psychology. Well, it turns out there probably is, especially since they're not able to teach it at all in Florida, since Florida has made it harder for Florida to teach critical, or for these schools to teach critical race theory and this super woke stuff. Absolute nonsense. It was so telling to me. And you know who they're referencing when they're talking about this AP psychology thing? The American Psychological Association. The APA recently reaffirmed that any course that excludes these topics would violate their guidelines and should not be considered for college credit. The APA has given this direct guidance to organizations that have agreed to this censorship. Now, I want to read you what I tweeted about this. So I felt, of course, that I was relatively spot on about this. I said, is it not intriguing that removing woke / critical race theory / gender and sexuality topics removes psychology from AP courses? Could it be that psychology has been fully co-opted by these ideologies? Maybe this is why everyone is simultaneously in therapy and getting worse. The APA refuses to accept the altered AP course from Florida, and that's that part that we just read from this Fox article. Why, you might ask? For much the same reason insurance companies are punishing Florida consumers, because they have an agenda and hope to force voters, to acquiesce to it. And I linked this piece from the APA, the American Psychological Association, resolution on supporting sexual / gender diverse children and adolescents in schools. Resolution adopted by the APA. Resolution. The Council adopts as APA policy the 2020 resolution on supporting sexual / gender diverse children and adolescents in schools. I cannot emphasize heavily enough that this is the organization that signs off on psychological training in this country. Whereas people express and experience great diversity in sexual and gender identity and expression, whereas communities today are undergoing rapid social, cultural, and political change around the policies and practices that are pertinent to the well-being of sexual and gender diverse youth, whereas rapidly changing social, cultural, and political climates have given rise to periodic conflicts between professional ethics and existing or developing policies, such as efforts to enact conscience or religious exemptions from provision of healthcare services which can adversely impact sexual and gender diverse students in schools, whereas all persons, including children and adolescents who are diverse in their sexuality and gender identities, expression, and or presentation, have the inherent human right to equal opportunity in a physically or psychologically safe environment within all institutions. And it goes on and on and on. Let's see what their conclusion is. This is absolutely nonsense. Consequences of stigma and minority stress, sexual and gender diversity. This is the American Psychological Association, okay? This is the people who are telling you what you can and can't teach about these topics in colleges. This is where it is taught. This is where the sausage is made, and this is who is making the rules. Now, let's look at what the APA has to say about masculinity. Because if I recall correctly, this mic likes to rise up. Yeah, okay. They issued first ever guidelines for practice with men and boys. I don't know, that's not the one I was looking for. Toxic masculinity. I believe they call it toxic. If I recall correctly, this may not be the right organization, but let's see. Yes, okay. Psychologists call traditional masculinity harmful. Face uproar from conservatives. Yes, you should face uproar from conservatives from calling masculinity harmful. This, again, is the organization that is teaching psychologists how to counsel people, okay? I kind of got to say, I rest my case when I point out that people aren't getting better by going through counseling, by talking to psychologists and therapists like this. This isn't improving things. And I'm not pointing fingers at certain psychologists. I really appreciate, for example, Dr. Chloe Carmichael. She's a fantastic lady, wonderful counselor. She is not like most psychologists. She's not like most counselors. Trav to the World says, remember, you don't even need a PhD or PsyD to be a clinician. People work as licensed therapists with master's degrees in social work. That's right. That's the other thing. Stuart Walker points out, support PublicSq HERE, fantastic app. That's correct. That is who Andy works with. It is so important. Serenko says, AP Psychology barely touches on sexuality unless they changed it. Since I took it, it sounds like they changed it. Because now they're saying they can't teach it at all because they can't teach these particular things. Isn't that interesting? Laurie Lemon says, I met some nutty psychologists. Yes. One of the things I've actually seen is that people who actually need psychological counseling tend to be the people who are giving psychological counseling. And that really unsettles me. Now, I understand, of course, that my experience is anecdotal, and I won't try to apply this to the entire profession. I just thought it was super, super interesting, and I just wanted to draw attention to this, and I wanted to point out that there are serious issues with psychology. Now, okay, what are we talking about next? Oh, yeah. Let's talk about higher academics. This is good. Journalism professor claims children should be exposed to adult parts to prepare them for seeing naked trans people in locker rooms in shocking jab at swimmer Riley Gaines. By the time I went to investigate the tweet that this person put out, they were already private. So I missed my chance. But the internet is forever, and they do have a copy of the tweet in this article. So let's read. Professor Katya Taimi took to Twitter to say that she believed children should be exposed to adult genitalia. They're like not even pretending anymore. They don't care if you know. They don't care what you think about them saying this stuff. They're just going to come right out and say it. They have nothing to fear. No one's ever going to come for their job for saying something like this. They will never be punished for it. So they're just going to tell you exactly what they think. I guess more power to them, kind of. A university professor has claimed kids should be exposed to adult genitalia to prepare them for the possibility of seeing a naked trans person in a shocking jab at swimmer Riley Gaines. Journalism, shocking. Professor, also highly shocking. Dr. Katya Taimi has made the comment in a Twitter post she shared criticizing swimmer and women's rights advocate Riley Gaines. Let's see if we can see this Twitter post. I don't think we can. Whoops. Oh my gosh. I don't know how to computer. Oh, that's not helpful. Thanks for nothing, Daily Mail. That's not what we wanted at all. So instead of opening the Twitter post, it just opens their section about Twitter. Taimi, who teaches at the University of British Columbia, of course, had been tweeted a video of Gaines explaining the effects of having to compete against transgender swimmer Leah Thomas. In a lengthy response to the video in which Taimi blasted Gaines, she also tweeted, "Hey, want to know one of my all-time excellent parenting ideas? Are you ready? Are you ready for this higher education paragon of wisdom to tell you her best parenting idea? Let little children see penises and vulvas of various ages and sizes in a casual, normalized, totally safe way." I would just like to highlight what this person looks like because it is exactly what you would expect, but I was shocked that her hair was all the same color. I just like to let that sink in. This is Riley. We know Riley. We love her. She continued, "The world will thank you for it, and so will those children when they grow up. Will they? Or will you have just traumatized them because they're children and you just expose them to naked adults, you disgusting, perverted, horrible human being? That's revolting." Gaines had competed after tying for 5th against a controversial trans swimmer Leah Thomas at last year's NCAA Trans Championship. She had previously said the experience of racing Thomas, who raced in the men's competition until 2019, felt like I was going into the race with my hands tied behind my back. During her Twitter thread last month, Timey labeled Gaines a transphobe, of course, so boring, and said Gaines gets tearful about the emotional effect it had on her that Thomas was holding the trophy which she had also won. That's just whiny. What a sore, not even loser. Unlike this professor who is actually a loser. The professor also claimed that incidents involving women who are uncomfortable after encountering biological males in locker rooms fuel anti-trans activism. No, that is women trying to keep their spaces and themselves and their children safe from predators who have been known to use these spaces to get close to these poor, vulnerable people. Yes, women are physically vulnerable to men, and children especially so. And speaking out in defense of their own spaces apparently makes them transphobe. So I am once again encouraging you all to completely reject your concern over the word transphobe. It means nothing. It does nothing. It has no weight, and you're not a phobe. You're not afraid of anything, and it is not irrational. If you are, you have a reasoned disdain for this ideology. It's not even necessarily the people themselves who have gender dysphoria. It is the ideology that pushes men into women's spaces. Texas Ranger says the APA has lost their marbles or are communists. Trapped to the World says it may not have changed. This is like the doctors who said they couldn't practice medicine unless all abortion was legal. Yeah. Texas Ranger says the APA doesn't care about the mentally ill walking around American citizens. Of course not. Josie says they're all quacks. My friendly neighbor commenting on shrinks. Yeah, I don't blame them. Let's see here. Randy says America does this while China learns advanced math and science and is building a massive military. That's correct. That is absolutely correct. Mr. Proxy says, Lids asked on Twitter to say something nice about communism. I said the USSR national anthem is an absolute banger. Agree or disagree? I 100% agree. Hello, Andy.
Hi, I brought you a cat.
I see you brought me a cat. Thank you. So look forward to the cat jumping up on camera. Absolutely, the USSR national anthem is indeed a banger. I was responding to Shoe on Head, who was noticing that Grimes, the former partner of Elon Musk, who is very complimentary of communism, had followed her on Twitter. I said, quick, say something nice about communism. And people were ready to deliver. They're like, it helps you lose weight. And they're like, it works for a couple months and all this other stuff. But I forgot about that national anthem. It is truly one of the best, I think, in the world. I just wanted to highlight that higher education is completely lost. There's no sense saving it. Kind of needs to be burned to the ground. People responded to this. If this woman has children, she needs to be investigated. She is sick. #groomer. So now to accommodate men in frocks, we have to routinely expose genitalia to kids. These people never consider other people have different beliefs. It's not just about different beliefs. It's about literally physically being safe. And someone else commented, this is the absolute definition of grooming. I would be interested to see if the university has done anything about this, though knowing how liberal is so pervasive in academia and in Canada, I sadly doubt it. They probably cheered her on. That's right. She's not going to get in trouble for this. Absolutely not. And I bet you, Nickel, that she is still set to private. Oh, I'm super curious. Let's find out. Let's see if this woman is still set to private, because I think she immediately did that after she posted that. Oh my gosh, she's wearing a mask in her profile picture. Good stuff. Let's see. All right, so it's still twitter.com. It's not x.com. Sentchya _TI. Yep. Still protected. The epitome of the hysterical left wing. Pronouns on chest. She, they. Of course, writes for Medium. No shock there. There's Dip. You can see him. Hi, Dip. Hello, sir. He's investigating Dad's new nightstand. We have new nightstands because we are getting our bed frame built tomorrow. Very excited for that. Very tired of hoisting my third trimester body off the floor every morning because we haven't had a bed frame for a while. Oh, good. He has his little cat tower back there so you guys can enjoy him. Mr. Proxy says, oh yeah, Grimes, she's from my city. She came from the wokest possible part of the country. Really funny. They had a kid. Yeah, too bad. Adrian says mask people. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's easy to tell. If you have a profile picture with a mask on it in it, I feel bad for your son, and for your son, because you're not in a good place. But I can assure you that you are going to your psychotherapy lessons for sure. St. Miles says, hey, Dip. Hey, Dip. Hey, Dip. All right. So this is an interesting article from Unheard, which I love. This is how she summarizes this. This is how organizations start to walk back from medical scandal. Quietly. Oh, good. Dips and dots in here, too, so they're going to be fighting in just a minute. Quietly, slowly, ideally so quietly and so slowly that no one notices, they've retreated from shaky to solid ground at all. Medical groups are memory holding their trans guidance. That's right. Do you guys realize how recently it was that Matt Walsh was going after, why can't I remember the names of these schools? It was a school we were talking about yesterday, the one in Tennessee, the one right there in Nashville. I just can't remember what it's called. It's university. Stuart Walker says mama bears will react against us with every fiber of their being. Think what daddy bears would do. For sure. We need strong parents now more than ever, and especially because of this stuff, because this stuff is wild. Absolutely crazy. The American Academy of Pediatrics wants to review youth gender treatments. Good. It's about darn time. This week, the AAP announced that it was setting out on the long road back to plausible deniability. Oh, it's about effing time. It's really hard for me not to swear this evening. I'm not sure why. Vanderbilt, thank you, username. I appreciate that. I knew it started with a V. I couldn't remember the name of it. At a meeting this week, all 16 AAP board members voted to reaffirm the organization's 2018 guidelines on how pediatricians should support transgender and gender diverse children and adolescents, which we know do not exist, before agreeing that a systematic review of the evidence supporting youth gender transition was in order. I hope that they are following the footsteps of all of the other countries pretty much in the rest of the world, like the UK and the Nordic countries like Sweden, I think Finland, maybe Denmark, Norway. The Academy's current guidelines claim puberty blockers are reversible. The UK's National Health Service now warns that little is known about the long-term side effects of hormones or puberty blockers on children with gender dysphoria. On the subject of surgical affirmation, an Orwellian term if there ever was one, the AAP advises that adolescents may undergo interventions to amputate breasts or genitalia on a case-by-case basis. The guidelines also take social transition, a psychosocial intervention in which a child's entire social circle is enlisted in a conspiracy to lie to them about their sex without due seriousness, despite evidence suggesting that social transition makes it harder for children to change their minds and accept their bodies. According to the New York Times, Mark Delmont, the chief executive of the AAP, says, the board has confidence that the existing evidence is such that the current policy is appropriate. At the same time, edging back toward plausible deniability, the board recognizes that additional detail would be helpful here. Oh, you mean like the fact that the UK found that puberty blockers aren't in fact reversible? And the fact that a lot of these countries are backing away from it altogether, making you feel a little bit nervous about what you're doing over here? People like Chloe Cole suing their doctors and their insurance companies might make you feel a little bit nervous. Gosh, I hope they feel so much more than nervous. I hope they feel absolutely guilty to the bone. This is a change of tune from AAP leadership, which has spent years resisting calls from within their own ranks for just such a review, going to extraordinary lengths to shut down dissent. But this is how organizations start to walk back from medical scandal. Quietly, slowly, ideally so quietly and so slowly that no one notices they've retreated from shaky to solid ground at all. First, they redefined gender-affirming care to de-emphasize controversial hormonal and surgical interventions. Moira Something, then president of the AAP, tried this move out last year when she insisted that destigmatizing gender variance and promoting a child's self-worth is what it means to affirm a child or teen. Well, you know that's BS. You know there's a lot more that you're doing to affirm a gender something child. Funny that the Academy's guidelines spilt so much ink on medical affirmation then while demonizing watchful waiting. On social media, the AAP suggested that gender-affirming care has, quote, never been about pushing medicines or surgery, close quote. That's a freaking lie. Whew, this is making me, this is raising my blood pressure. We've also seen efforts elsewhere to broaden the umbrella on gender-affirming surgery to the point of meaninglessness, such that taking birth control pills, getting an abortion, and telling little girls it's okay to wear dresses are all, quote, gender-affirming care. Who knew? Not me. Then they'll claim that this was all gender-affirming care ever meant all along. Who is talking about hormones and surgeries? Who is advocating a massive medical experiment in suppressing pubescent development? Medical professional associates like the American Academy of Pediatrics will magically rediscover everything they used to know about child and adolescent development. This is why nobody trusts the institutions. This is why all the faith that was lost during the pandemic is never going to come back. Because one of the things we also discovered during the pandemic was that these doctors are lying like this in other ways too. And it really makes people stop and wonder, what else are they lying about? And this has been something interesting for me to watch, because people used to watch how Trump was covered, right? Trump would give a speech and then the media would spin it out of control, crazy stuff, total and complete nonsense. And then people would start to notice, because they would listen to his actual speech and they'd say, wait a minute, he never said that. Why are you saying he said that? Why are you trying to paint something that didn't really happen? And then they would slowly start to ask questions like, wait a second, what else are they not telling the truth about? And that's kind of what it feels like where we are now with the medical institutions, right? Because we watch doctors take money hand over fist from big pharma and turn around and tell us to do something that was probably not in our best interest. And I won't speak to that right now. Who knows how YouTube feels about that right now? But we watched it happen. We watched them be incentivized by money. And I feel like that's what we're watching here too. And there's really no way to hold them to account unless people start suing them left, right, and center, which I'm really excited about seeing. I'm watching people like Chloe Cole pushing this, people who were pushed to transition too young and who had no frame of reference from which to operate. Absolute nonsense. I'm very, very happy to hear this. Let's see here. They'll claim this is all it ever was. Medical professional associations like it will magically discover everything they knew. Then they will pretend they never overlooked these things. It'll just be years too late for kids who transitioned under their guidance. That's right. They actively don't care about the kids they push to make these changes. Those people don't matter. Only the AAP and the money they get from pushing these kinds of surgeries will benefit, or they matter at all. Then they'll claim, go away unheard, then they will claim that this is all gender affirming care. Right. Medical scandals don't tend to end with reckonings. They tend to end with mass forgetting, with amnesia, not accountability for those who caused harm, no matter how righteous their intentions. Well, thanks, unheard. That's a really uplifting conclusion. I hope you're wrong about that, but we'll see what happens. Andy says, interestingly, when the plague took over Europe, the surviving generation inherited crazy amounts of wealth and property from all the people who died. Interesting. And he says, at least our generation's children will inherit a crap ton of wealth to go around. Not sure about that. They ended up helping Trump in the end because it became so easy to show people how they were lying right to our faces. And yet, there are still people that Andy and I both know who are still out there saying things like, oh my gosh, what, you don't trust CNN? Why aren't you listening to them? They're saying that Russia influenced the 2020 election, whatever, 2016 election. Who knows? Hello, Andy. Hello, Martin. Excuse me. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining us. Andy says there is truly a pandemic of cowardice. I agree. There's also a pandemic of incompetence. Somebody was pointing that out the other day. I don't remember where. Mr. Proxy says so many people seem to have an opinion on how to raise a child, even though they've decided they will never have a child due to X reason. I have noticed that for sure. Instagram comments are wild because people who you know don't have children and never will come on and tell you that you shouldn't, for example, swaddle your child. And I'm just like, you're nuts. I'm not going to listen to you. Crazy, irritating. Let's look at this real fast. I thought this was super interesting. Glenn Greenwald is pointing this out, and I was so grossed out because it's exactly what they did with Robert Mueller. Let me start with this one. Liberals and Bill Kristol's neocon site share the same pornography. From the Bulwark, Jack Smith's steely-eyed gaze. This man, he's so attractive and strong. We love him so much. It's borderline sexual how much we like this man because he's taking out our political opposition. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Among the many creepy aspects of much of the corporate media openly drooling over Jack Smith's athletic prowess, fitness obsession, and masculine features is that MSNBC just 2 weeks ago said all of this was the hallmark of fascist toxic masculinity. That's right. Remember that? The intersection of extremism and fitness leans into a shared obsession with the male body, training, masculinity, testosterone, strength, and competition. Recruits are encouraged to link individual moral virtues such as the willpower, decisiveness, and courage with desired collective traits such as virility and manliness. But suddenly it's good because this man is going after your political opposition. That's really gross to me. And yes, I'm aware that they inserted one throwaway line at the end about how working out isn't necessarily fascist, but all the ways they are plainly arousing themselves while talking about Jack Smith are, in this article and elsewhere, depicted as neo-Nazi toxic masculinity. This was, of course, the exact same way that these exact same people spoke of both Robert Mueller and Michael Avenatti. Well, speaking of Robert Mueller, watching liberal media figures convert prosecutors into sex symbols over whom they openly and earnestly drool seems deeply unhealthy to me. Inside Robert Mueller's horny, joking, but not really fandom, the special counsel has all the qualities of a super crush. He's mysterious, he doesn't return phone calls, he plays hard to get. Here he is, inside a Valentine locket, and it says, "I love you more." I am just... Step aside, Idris Elba and Chris Hemsworth. Robert Mueller is America's new crush. And I said, this is how this makes me feel. I don't even know what movie this is from, but it's Ryan, one of the Ryans, and he's just like so disdainful and disgusted of whatever he just looked at. He's just like, I literally can't even. And that's really just my reaction, and it's gross. But they are going to continue to go after Trump. John Bolton, however, has some very serious words of concern for them that they should probably listen to. Now, we don't love John Bolton, but he's not an idiot. John Bolton warns that prosecuting Trump is like playing Russian roulette. Does that mean he's a Russian cat's paw? Oh my gosh. And it could backfire big time. Let's see how he says it'll backfire. Republican John Bolton warned Thursday that sending former President Donald Trump to trial is a form of Russian roulette that may backfire in a big way. On Thursday, Trump was arraigned, this we know. While a court date has not yet been set for trial, Bolton told CNN anchor Jake Tapper that prosecuting the former president is risky, no matter how you spin it. I think it's the right thing to do, but it is a modified form of Russian roulette, he said. If Trump's convicted in one or both of the federal cases, I think that will turn things upside down. I think he could be denied the Republican nomination. He'd certainly lose the election. I disagree with John Bolton on much of this, but let's continue. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll hear him out. But if he is acquitted or hung jury results, which I think would be understood by most people as being the equivalent of acquittal, I think he would get the Republican nomination and he could quite possibly win the election on the back of that. The risk is real, according to Bolton, that if Trump is not convicted, he will be emboldened and empowered. That's right. His lawyers don't even have to prove anything. They simply have to induce reasonable doubt in the minds of one or more jurors to get a hung jury. And if people think he's being railroaded, if they don't believe the prosecution case, or if they believe whatever case Trump puts on, and this results in a hung jury in either of the two federal cases, I think we're in for real trouble. Bolton rooted his caution in Congress twice attempting to impeach Trump. Both attempts, of course, failed and did not end his political career. Polls conducted after Trump's previous indictment showed that his supporters did not waver. Trump's lead, in fact, grew over his Republican opponents. Now, those are his supporters, okay? And this is something I want to hammer home. It's fine that Donald J. Trump supporters like Donald J. Trump. They wouldn't be his supporters if that weren't the case. However, people who are independent voters, people who might not be swayed, people who might be tired of the Trump show and exhausted by all the conversation, all the dialogue, all the fiery comebacks on Truth Social, will not be swayed. And that's something that they need to keep in mind when they're looking at 2024, because I have a sinking feeling that the Republicans are going to lose 2024, and it should literally be the easiest selection of all time. Look at Joe Biden. But we are hamstrung by what's happening with Donald Trump. And the Democrats have to know that their attempts to keep him busy might just work out. And Republicans need to remember. So Democrats need to remember that their attempts to hamstring him might work. And Republicans also need to remember that. But Republicans also really need to remember that just because they're in Trump's camp all the way doesn't mean that everyone is. And not everyone is looking at it the same way that they are. Independent voters, probably likely not. With Americans souring on President Joe Biden, that would be the Democratic Party's worst nightmare. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think. I just am very, very concerned for November 2024. I just want to touch on this from Vivek. It is the Friday night bonus haul. I forgot to mention that earlier on because we were so busy celebrating Barack Obama's birthday, the holiest of days. Vivek Ramaswamy, the youngest GOP presidential candidate, wants civics tests for young voters 18 to 24. Yes, 1,000 times yes. I will take no further questions. I have no notes. 100% yes. In fact, this was one of my cases against the 19th Amendment. It was very little to do with women in general. It was to do with the fact that not everyone should vote, okay? They just shouldn't. Not everyone knows enough to vote. Not everyone cares enough about what's going to happen in the future. People who don't have kids don't care enough about what's going to happen in the future. People who don't own land don't care what happens to the U.S. People who don't have a vested interest in the country shouldn't be making the choices that decide what direction the country goes. Period. Millennial Republican and biotech CEO Vivek Ramaswamy is running as the youngest candidate in his party's presidential primary, a fact he often mentions at his campaign events. Take it from me as a young person, I'm 37 years old. I was born in 1985. I truly hope and pray and believe that my best days are still ahead of me. Though he's campaigning as a young candidate, Ramaswamy would like to make it a little harder for the nation's youngest voters to cast a ballot. Good, me too. And I'm 32 as of tomorrow. I 100% agree with this. I could not agree more. Have you seen people my age and younger? They are wrong about everything. But they are so confident, so self-assured, and so heavy on self-esteem that they will never be told otherwise. And that's going to lead to some serious problems for our country. But here we are. The day you sign up for the draft, you're an adult, says Josie. I agree. 100%. Vivek like cake. Thank you. He says some interesting things. I don't agree with him on everything. And he is, I believe, Hindu. He also doesn't have children and is not married. So, as with Tim Scott, this is a similar issue I have with Tim Scott. It's very important. Yes, Adrian Curry's birthday is right after mine. Hers is Sunday. Mine is Saturday. Barack Obama's is today. Good for us. We are the trifecta. What can I say? Sorenko says, happy birthday. Thank you. We're going to go out to eat and we're going to put our house in order tomorrow for sure. Lots of people can't even pass the ASVAB, yet they can vote. Yes, so what Vivek was pushing was this test that they administer to people who are considering becoming American citizens, for sure. Adrian says, I'm tired of super old people. Well, then you would love this gentleman from Florida who's in his 40s and who has 3 kids and is married. His wife just survived breast cancer. Donald J. Trump is approaching the average lifespan of a male in the U.S., okay? The average lifespan of a male in the U.S. is 77 years old. And this is something I mentioned on Twitter. I said that the people who are running for president on both sides of the aisle right now will have exceeded the average life expectancy for their gender by the time they're running in November, right? To me, this is a serious issue because I'm about to have a kid. Their life will just be beginning. And for these politicians, they don't care at all. They don't care what happens 5 years down the road. That might as well be in Narnia. They don't care at all. But I do. So I want somebody younger. I do want somebody who has kids. I prefer somebody who's married and who really has a vested interest in the community and culture in that regard. And it's just, yeah, man, not good. The media machine caused Trump fatigue. That's a real thing for sure. Yes. People report being very exhausted by Trump stuff. Back to normal for a lot of people was after Trump left office. The media shut the F up. Yeah, 100%. Thank you, St. Miles, for birthday. Happy birthday. I appreciate it. Adrian says, I wish DeSantis could take speaking/acting classes. See, I don't care, though. I don't care if DeSantis can be charismatic and friendly. I don't want to invite him over for dinner. I want him to lead our country like he led Florida. That's what I care about. Yeah, he could take speaking classes. I sense that he's super uncomfortable about it. He might be a little bit autistic. Who knows? He might be on the spectrum. It's fine. Whatever. Someone suggested DeSantis Vivek 2024 would be great. That would be great. Indeed, I say. All right, you guys, I think I'm going to wrap it here. Thankfully, my breathing has been better tonight, but I'm feeling exhausted. And Andy and I might go out for birthday dinner tonight. We'll see what happens. Andy says Vivek could do the messaging. DeSantis does all the dirty work. Yeah, absolutely. Adrian says, idiots care. That is what is said. That's right. These people vote just like me and you. And that's why I don't like the 19th Amendment. I think we should actually check if people know what they're talking about when they cast their ballots. But that's never going to happen. Everybody's got a right to vote, right? Everybody has to. We just have to. We don't have a choice. All right, you guys, I will see you all on Monday. I will be older, no doubt wiser. My house will be much better organized. We will have a bed frame. Lots of good stuff coming our way. Stuart says, happy birthday, Lids. Have a great one. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, you guys, until next time, stay safe, stay well, stay out of Target. Till then, bye, guys. how's it going?